Penguin Random House Audio presents The Reopening of the Western Mind, the Resurgence of Intellectual Life from the End of Antiquity to the Dawn of the Enlightenment, by Charles Freeman. Read for you by Mark Bramhall. For my daughter Cordelia. Preface. The epithets barbarous and civilized occur so frequently in conversation and in books that whoever employs his thoughts in contemplation of the manners and history of mankind will have occasion to consider with some attention both what ideas these words are commonly meant to convey, and in what sense they ought to be employed by the historian and moral philosopher. James Dunbar, Essay on the History of Mankind in Rude and Cultivated Ages, 1780. The monastic foundation of the Chora in Istanbul, formerly the great Christian city of Constantinople, is a rare survival of a church with its original medieval decorations in what has been an Islamic city since 1453. Founded in the 4th century as a monastery of the Holy Saviour in the Fields, outside the walls built by Emperor Constantine, Chora designates the open space around a city, it then became enclosed within the later 5th century set of walls, but never lost its name. It is famous today for its wonderful 14th century mosaics, and in a fresco in a side chapel, a stunning portrayal of the resurrected Christ entering limbo to release the souls there. It was in 1295, just before the mosaics were created, that one Maximus Planudes, an erudite Byzantine Greek monk who was fascinated by the ancient world, tracked down in the library the one manuscript he was looking for, a copy of Claudius Ptolemy's Geographica Hyphagesis, Guide to Drawing the Earth. The Geographica was one of the major intellectual achievements of the 2nd century A.D., and its rediscovery proved a vital breakthrough. Ptolemy, circa A.D. 100 to 170, perhaps more famous for his great work on astronomy, the Almagest, had adopted the concepts of longitude and latitude from the Greek astronomer Hipparchus, circa 190 B.C. to 120. He then used a text by the cartographer and mathematician Marinus of Tyre, circa A.D. 70 to 130, to provide the coordinates for no fewer than 8,000 locations, covering an area that extended from the Canary Islands in the west to what is now the Gulf of Thailand in the east, with maps setting them out. For these, Ptolemy followed Hipparchus in dividing the earth into 360 equal degrees, with the equator at 0 degrees and the imagined North Pole some 90 degrees latitude above it. The Canary Islands were designated by Ptolemy at 0 degrees longitude, with the total span of his locations 180 degrees to the east in distant Asia. Sadly, none of these maps have survived, but there was enough material in the text to recreate them. We still use Ptolemy's system today, bands of longitude and latitude equally spaced on the surface of a globe. The rediscovery of the Geographica in the late 13th century, 1,000 years after it had been written down and presumed lost, was a seminal moment in the reopening of the Western mind. Planudes was not the only copy of the Geographica to survive. Another was known to the Arabs and had been translated into Arabic in the 9th century. It was used by the nobly born cartographer Muhammad al-Idrisi, who had been invited to join the cultured court of the Norman king of Sicily, Roger II, in about the year 1138. Al-Idrisi adopted Ptolemy's concepts of longitude and latitude to create 70 regional maps in which all the sections were drawn to the same scale, the first time this had been done. The maps were recognizably accurate in delineating the known world of Ptolemy, even though, according to Arabic convention, north and south were reversed. Most illustrations of al-Idrisi's maps follow the Western convention of the north at the top. They reflected the faith of its maker, so they showed the Arabian Peninsula and Mecca at the center, and the text was in Arabic, but al-Idrisi used Greek, Latin, and Arabic sources without discrimination. The open-minded Roger II took such an interest in the project that the volume containing the maps and accompanying text became known as the Tabula Rogeriana, the Book of Roger. Following the death of Roger, who had proved such an enthusiastic patron to al-Idrisi in 1154, the climate of the times was hardly conducive to the dissemination of the work of the Tabula's creator. With the Crusades dominating the Christian imagination, an Islamic map of this date, even one produced at a European court, was hardly likely to be welcomed. Al-Idrisi's pioneering work therefore remained little known in Europe. Yet it serves to highlight one of the major themes of this book. The Arabs were well ahead of the Europeans in intellectual life, at least until the 13th century, and they were able to make a formidable contribution to the revival of Western learning. The copy of Ptolemy found by Planudes proved more influential in Europe. The monk took his find to the Byzantine Emperor Andronikos II Palaiologos, who was equally excited by the discovery. He soon had his finest copyists working on the manuscript, and his best mathematicians plotting out the maps. Planudes added his own explanatory texts, translating the Greek numerals into the Arabic ones that we use today. 3 copies of their atlases survive, in large folios with all the 26 maps Ptolemy had given coordinates for. Manuel Chrysoloras, a scholar from Constantinople, brought 1 copy to Florence when he initiated the teaching of Greek there in 1396. By 1410, the first Latin translation of the original Greek text had been made by one of Chrysoloras' students, the Tuscan Jacobus Angelus, who dedicated it to Pope Alexander V. For the humanists, the Geographica became honored as another window into the minds of the ancients, and as a text that was clearly superior to its competitors. It gradually supplanted medieval conceptions of the geography of Europe, the Christian Mappae Mundi, and the Portolan charts that used compass bearings to plot the ports of the Mediterranean. By the end of the 15th century, the Geographica was still dominating the world of the cartographers. As knowledge of the Earth's land masses expanded, Ptolemy's findings could be adapted to fit these new discoveries. So while Ptolemy knew nothing of Scandinavia, the northernmost point in the Geographica was the semi-mythical island of Thule at 63 degrees. His system could be used to incorporate the region in newly drawn maps. Yet by 1520, Ptolemy was being challenged. While his longitude and latitudes remained essential, his inaccuracies were becoming apparent. He had provided locations only as far as 20 degrees south of the equator, leaving the south of Africa unplotted. It was not even known whether sea surrounded the continent. Only after the Cape of Good Hope had been rounded by Bartholomew Diaz in 1488 was the full extent of Africa appreciated, and Ptolemy's system had to be adapted to include it. More dramatically, his sweep of locations stretched too far round the globe. This suggested that navigation across the undiscovered and uncharted section of the globe would be over a relatively short distance, with the possibility that a voyage to the west could reach eastern Asia without difficulty. Columbus had set off in 1492 with this misconception that was demolished by the unexpected discovery of the New World of the Americas. These had to be fitted in once their long coastlines were surveyed. Ptolemy's sweep of locations across Eurasia had then to be compressed. When Magellan's sailors circumnavigated the world for the first time in 1521, this opened the way for a global map that went well beyond anything Ptolemy had envisaged. The shift in perspective can be seen.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?